As one of 16 buildings under the care and guidance of New York City's supportive and affordable housing group Common Ground, the Prince George Building on 28th Street in Manhattan is keeping a close eye on the ongoing fiscal cliff negotiations.
For those on the receiving end of federal money, the fiscal discussions in Washington are nothing short of alarming. Already operating under tighter budgets following last year's Budget Control Act, the discretionary programs, the optional programs funded by the federal government, will certainly face some kind of budget tightening. Here in New York City, the housing and community development programs, funded in part by the federal government, are bracing for the worst.
We've never seen anything like it on the scale that we're talking about right now.
Ted Houghton is the executive director of the Network, an advocacy and member organization for over 200 housing and community development groups, including Common Ground.
Much of it is speculative, but it doesn't take a lot of imagination to understand what's going to happen. I mean, if you're looking at cuts to the Section 8 rental subsidy program, New York City could look at about 8,000 people losing Section 8. Those are 8,000 marginally housed people that would then be struggling to pay their rent, entering the shelter system. Right now, the shelter system is at a record 46,000 people living in the shelters. 46,000 people, if you add 8,000 to that, it's an enormous hit to the city budget, to the state budget, and other things would have to be cut then.
As negotiations between Congress and U.S. President Barack Obama seem to have officially hit a logjam, it seems increasingly likely that Houghton's speculation might become a reality. And just as the markets are unsure of what going over the fiscal cliff will mean, it's unclear what Common Ground and the Prince George Building will look like if Congress and President Obama opt to take the plunge.
We're not sure what's going to happen. So you don't want to over-plan, you don't want a contingency plan for things that are completely in flux and you're just not sure. The thought of additional robust cuts leave us wondering whether we'd be able to continue operating and developing. So I would say in my history, this is the most concerned I've ever been about the future of supportive housing.
If the U.S. does indeed go over the fiscal cliff, according to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, nearly 180,000 Americans, 87,000 in New York State alone, could lose access to housing vouchers like those used at the nearly 3,000 apartment units managed by Common Ground. And while it is estimated that the effect would make a serious dent in U.S. deficits, even economists question the efficacy of this entire exercise.
I think the worst consequence of the fiscal cliff is that it's really taking attention away from what really needs to be done for the long run. Doing it in this sort of ham-handed, this brute force way is not the way it should be done. I mean, I think what is worth adding is where are we going to go with fundamental tax reform? Because I think that's what people are avoiding with this discussion about these immediate issues. And politics has a way of doing that, of sort of focusing on the very short term and not thinking about the long term.
But even if a deal is reached and the drastic cuts to discretionary spending are avoided, there's little question that groups like Common Ground and those working in supportive housing will be forced to operate under much leaner circumstances.
Whether it is increased revenues or decreased spending, the decisions made in Washington, while political, will have human consequences. And whether the U.S. goes over the fiscal cliff or not, Washington seems intent to make sure that everyone will feel those consequences. Christopher Booker, Financial Times, New York City.